derler. Yoksa diğer türlü deli diyecekler beni. Kayıtta mı?
You spend so much time trying to get into the world, you could think about what would happen from being out of it. And when he said that, I had to think of, like, I wasn't sure what to think of. I thought of like a telescope looking up, but a satellite, like a telescope in a satellite, and that from being up there, you might be able to see things better somehow. Like, you might be able to get a sense of the structure of things, like how things were lining up. You might be able to get a sense of what was coming next. And then it would be like strategy. Is I guess what I thought he meant at first. And then I thought about the place in the cathedral that's up top. That you just don't know, how did they build that? How did anybody get up there? I mean, did they have a crane or? And that's that's in the world and out of the world. Those places that you can't even imagine. And then I thought about ghosts. Because ghosts are in the world and they're out of the world. They're like, one day they're here, and then the next day they're there, they appear like boom, and then they disappear, and they're like boom, and then they disappear. It's like boom, and then they're gone. Shh, only they're quiet. So it's like boom, but they're quiet. It's like in the world, but out of the world. What would come from being out of the world? Like reading history. This friend of mine, the same guy, he sent me a text. I was talking with him about politics, and we were going to do this talk, but he got sick and he canceled. But it didn't matter because he was still, in my talk, he had still somehow been, it was all in there with me. I carried him with me even though he was in his apartment with the flu, this cough that he couldn't get rid of because he wouldn't stop smoking. And I sent him a text about politics in the 70s, and he sent me something about Emperor Justinian. And that happened here. I don't think he knew I was coming here. And Justinian and his wife, they set up this great thing where there was the blues and the greens. And so there was this one group from over here. It was about, first it came from chariot races, like at the Hippodrome. And so there was one group which was the green group, and they would come in, and they burst in, and when they burst in, and then everything was a problem, and so the blue group had to stop them, and there were these two groups, and one group was associated with Justinian, and the other group was associated with his wife. And so one group was Justinian's group, and the other group was with his wife. And so they were always fighting, and everyone was trying to compete. Everyone was saying, like, well, how do we get in there with Justinian? But it turned out actually that they were together all along. That Justinian and his wife, it was one thing, it was one structure. Did he mean that? That they were the two of them and they had made this two things. And everybody was saying it was one side or the other side. And afterwards I thought about zombies. I thought about zombies like they're in the world, but they're out of the world. They move a bit faster. And they have a purpose. They're not going. The zombies. All the zombies on TV. It's like all the TV shows are about the end of the world now. It's like, I think it's this idea that I was talking with someone about politics night before last, And the way he said it, it sounded like he was talking from the bottom of a well. Like he was talking from very far away, and all he could look up and see were walls. But I knew he wasn't just talking about himself, he was talking about everybody. And so it was a very big well. And I think the zombie shows are like the ideas that we would emerge from that, and I wouldn't worry about my taxes, and I wouldn't worry about all these things, and I could make decisions because we'd be there together. It would just be us. The plane has crashed, and it's us, and we have to deal with each other, and we can make decisions. What kind of people are we going to be? I fantasize that the plane is like Lost, the zombie TV shows. On one of the zombie TV shows, the woman, because the zombies are trying to eat all the time. And in the movie, they made a movie in the 70s that the zombies are in a shopping mall and they're just going through and then they touch all the clothes. And there was an idea that the zombie movies were like a critique of consumerism. Because they always have to eat. Except on The Walking Dead now, they discovered that if you cut off the arms, and if you cut off the jaw, then they don't want to eat. They call them, instead of calling them walkers, they call them lurkers. And they're just there. The zombie as a metaphor of consumerism is relatively recent. Previously, the zombie was a metaphor of the slave. The zombies in Haiti were people who had to do what other people told them to do. They were like, they were summoned up. You would summon a group of them out of the ground. And they would come out of the ground and they would be like your forces, and then you would all move forward and go and do some task. And what I read recently was that the zombie myth originally Haiti had a revolution of slaves. But before that, one of the things the slaves did to try and escape their conditions was they would kill themselves. So there would be these mass epidemics of suicides. And the slave masters, they thought that the way to get out of that was to convince the slaves that even after you were dead, you still had to work. And that's what the zombies are. Ba-ba. Ba-ba, 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 ba-ba. Thanks, that's the end.
had a garden. With oregano, mint, minta, chamomile, thyme, and the mint sent roots into the chamomile, and the oregano got big, more big. And the mint sent roots into the chamomile. And the bees, they love it. Tea tree. In Australia, tea tree. It's so sharp and clean. It's an oil from a tree. An oil from a tree. Called that plant that gives that smell that you put in the linen, you fold it into the linen. It's called, oh, what's it called? It's tiny purple flowers. Help me. Lavender. Lavender. The bees. And every people sees every detail of history in a different way. And if you don't know the history, you don't understand. And I don't know the history. I know that Turkey decides if a ship is too heavy to go through the Bosphorus. The tonnage. How many tons does this ship have? This ship that comes through. How many tons? And can it go through? Can it go from the Mediterranean to the Black Sea? And NATO, right to the skin of Russia. I remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, when Russia had, what do you call those things that they can shoot things with? They had right on the skin of the US, right in Cuba, and the US never forgave Cuba. Missiles, that's what they had. They had missiles right at the skin of the US. flows differently if you're of one or of another. Your feeling of time. Each detail, but events happen. The things that happen, they happen. Things happen. Things happen. You see them one way or the other. You see them in different ways. Different people see them. The chamomile. The chamomile sends more plants into the mint. And the mint, the mint, the mint, the mint. You can put the mint, you can put the mint in your tea. You can make mint tea. You can make tea with mint. And apples stay where they fall. And then the bears come and they eat the apples that have been on the ground a long time and are beginning to ferment. And the bears eat the fermented apples. And the bears get drunk. The bears get drunk on apples. The bears get drunk. The bears get drunk on the apples. The bears get drunk. The bears get drunk. The bears, and the bees, and the bees, the bees, the bees, and the bears, and the bears, and the bees, and the bees, and the bears, and the bears, and the apples, the apples, the apples, the apples. And things happen, and the bears get drunk, and the bees go to the lavender, the bees go to the lavender, and the lavender fights with the oregano, because the lavender is this kind of a plant. The lavender does this, and the oregano does this, and the lavender, and the oregano, and the lavender, and the apples drop. 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 And things happen. Things happen. Everyone sees it differently, but the thing happens. Everyone sees it differently, but it happens. It happens. The apple falls, the bear gets drunk, and the bees, and the oregano. so strange that the way things are, it could just as easily have been and the mosaics in the Mosaic Museum. The leg is so articulated, the muscle, and the lion, and the elephant that takes the lion. The elephant takes the lion. The lion takes everything. The lion takes everything, and then the elephant takes the lion. The elephant and the bears. The bear takes the man. The bear takes the man. The bear goes, ha, 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 the bear. In Vermont, we have bears. We have little black bears. They go like this. They go, oh, and then land, and then this. And oh, this, and this. They're very shy. They're not like the bears in the Mosaic Museum. They have bears in the Mosaic Museum, and the bear gets drunk. The bear gets drunk. The bear gets drunk. The bear. Where's Jeremiah? Where's Jeremiah? Let's start again. The bear gets drunk.
The bear gets drunk. The bear gets drunk. The bees and the birds and the bears. Bees and the birds and the bears. The bees and the birds and the bears and the boys and the girls. The bees and the bears and the birds and the boys and the girls, and the bees get lost. The bees get lost on the way home. That's why they're all dying. You read the bees. This
I
thing.
know the bees are having a hard time.
Well, and they don't know quite why, but there's one theory that it's a fungus, and then the other theory is it's, genetically modified food, and the other one was a wireless, but apparently the way that the problem is actually that it screws up their ability to find home.
Well, how come I can find all the honey I want in the store?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Oh,
Where do they make all that honey?
I don't know, because they have them, you can get it in a little plastic bottle shaped like a bear.
Do they have enough for all the bears?
And the bear, the bottle, bear, bee honey, you turn it upside down and squeeze it, and all the honey comes out.
Comes out of the head?
All the honey you could possibly want.
And you would never know that there were no bees.
I love to read about Pangea. I used to think that the Palisades on the Hudson River in New York, that their shape was like Africa had the negative shape of the positive shape. Of New Jersey. But now I think not. I love Wikipedia.
Pangea is when? Pangea is what?
Pangea is when all the floating crusts of earth were together, and then they divided up and they formed the continents that are still changing and moving. And the Arab Peninsula floated up into Europe and made the Alpine Mountains was the Arab Peninsula floating north. It floated north, and it made the mountains. It made the Alps. And how are things floating down? How are things? Is the Bosphorus spreading, or is it getting tighter, or is it all moving together?
I have this feeling that somehow you gotta be hard now. I have this feeling here, like it's been 5 years since I was here. It feels hard now. It feels like everybody's harder. Everything got harder. Everybody's harder. Everybody's tougher. Things got tougher for everybody.
Los Angeles, everybody's in fantasy.
A shared fantasy, like a big.
Oh, that was a dumb thing to say.
Okay.
The passion.
You get hard and then you go too far and you have to come back. And so someone comes up to you and they ask for something. And they ask in a fucked up way, in a bad way. And you're hard on them. And it feels good. And then it feels terrible and you have to go all the way back. You have to go back and you have to start. You're like, oh, of course, yeah, sure. No, I'm sorry.
Imagine that passion.
I'm sorry, you have to get soft again. And then you wonder why you had to get hard in the first place. What was happening? And then you see how things happen and you think, well, I have to be hard.
And when your little boy, Cassidy, heard the call to prayer, and he sang along, and his pitch was perfect. He didn't have the passion, he had the curiosity of pitch.
You had the curiosity of pitch.
But he sang a few notes, and he sang the...
It was better than that.
Well, it was specific to what that specific melody is the passion. In America, we only have that passion in the black churches. We have that passion in the black churches.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Yeah, but are you sure that you don't have those, all those, the snake people, the deliverance ministry people, the people who, that get cured from being a crack addict from God thing, those people, the heroin addict?
Well,
they're black.
People
For the
sing
people
with
I knew in the
passion.
deliverance ministry.
People sing with passion. People sing with passion. Passion.
Well,
I can only stop and listen when I hear that.
the feeling, so China's GDP is going up. And people say that that explains certain things that are happening. Like some things are going up and some things are going down. And there's a guy, he's from Wisconsin, and he says that the drones and the NSA are like like a soft landing. That's the idea of a kind of a gradual soft landing for America, not a collapse, a very slow process. And that narrative should explain, or it's like a key narrative for the other narratives, this soft landing narrative. And I hold that in my head, or I listen to this guy on the radio, on the internet, on internet radio, and for a moment it feels like I understand what's going on. And then there's the rest of the time. And the rest of the time, I don't know how to, the rest of the time is like, well, it could be this, or it could be that, or it could be them, or it could be that, or what should I do? I could do this, or I could go over here. Maybe, did you read that? Did you hear about that? No, I hadn't heard about that. Well, if you had heard that, you wouldn't. Do you read that? Did people read Pravda with enthusiasm? What's the enthusiasm involved with reading Pravda? Like, and I just mean like when you're not sure what's going on. Like there's a story, but you're pretty sure it's not the whole story. Pretty sure there's things that are, people that are pushed aside, like when they clip people's pictures out of photos, when they did that in Russia, those people knew that meant that they were going to come and get them. So when you're written out of the story, it has consequences. The story's not just a fake thing.
Time folds. Things happen and fold in time, and then they unfold.